as far as doing just intellectual type espionage, the most difficult one is being undercover illegal and by yourself. Okay, so that required a number of character traits that they had to find out whether I had them.
So I want to jump into the KGB recruitment process, but kind of a question that leads us into that would be, growing up or in high school, obviously when it came on your radar, but is the possibility of being a KGB agent, we talked about how they were viewed when you're growing up. Is that like a viable career path, or was that kind of something that you had to be chosen for, and if you weren't?
That was as far from my mind as Johannesburg is distance from here. Mm-hmm. Not even a clue. Even Stasi, I wasn't thinking of becoming one of those, heroes that they depicted on the TV. No, that was fantasy. I was wired to become a college professor because my parents were both teachers. I have teaching and mentoring in my blood. I always liked helping people out. I started teaching when I was in high school. I started tutoring young kids in lower grades for pay too. That was my career plan. I had nothing else in mind, nothing whatsoever. And even if you did, you wouldn't know how to start, because for those kinds of jobs, both the Stasi and the KGB recruited. You could not apply.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
You could not. You wouldn't even know what door to knock on. I think the Stasi recruited, period, but for every one of their employees, also the ones that did the internal stuff, the nasty, the evil stuff, the oppression of resistance and counter opinions and so forth. But the KGB, not even in my wildest dreams.
Mm-hmm. So, again, before jumping into that recruiting process, when do you think that when do you think they first started getting their eyes on you?
All right. I don't have conclusive proof, and there is conflicting information. There's my guess, and there's my friend telling me that he originated in. My best friend in high school, really smart guy, smarter than me, and he joined the party while still in high school. My best friend in college. Did I say high school? I correct myself. He was a volunteer for the Stasi already as we entered college. And over time, he figured that I would be material for the Stasi to recruit. And he thinks the Stasi then shared that information with the KGB. And I have indirect proof that they did not. And I tell you why. I am convinced that even though Stasi and KGB cooperated closely, they kept things secret from one another. They didn't trust one another. Mm-hmm. That mistrust was inbuilt into the KGB, was also inbuilt into the Stasi. It came from the roots of having operated as communists illegally with these small groups of 3 to 4 individuals and only one person who knew all the members of the groups and would have a contact with another group. So if one of the other guys were caught, they couldn't betray anybody, or only like the members of the group. So the secrecy was built into the model. How they operated was heritage. And so the indirect proof I have is initially the KGB recruited me clearly with the intent of sending me to West Germany. That was at a time when the Stasi had 1,000 people in West German government. Why did they need their own guy? Mm-hmm. Okay? So I think my educated guess is superior to what my friend claimed. He probably wanted to get a little bit of the glory because he told me that after we reconnected after so many years. And God rest his soul, he passed away a year ago. So they did pretty much something similar to the CIA. They were looking for people, college students, that were at elite colleges, universities. And the school that I attended to was one of the elites in East Germany. And the one thing that the CIA probably doesn't have, the Stasi had access to, they kept records of people that were important to them to keep records of, like dissidents, but also cadre, people who could be somebody important in the future, party leadership, government, what have you, Stasi itself. So there were files on us. And I believe that the KGB had access to those files. And that is when they found out that A, I was an A student, B, that I had received in my junior year the highest scholarship of the country that was restricted to a limited number of concurrent holders. I mean, it marked me as intellectual elite, but I also was very active in the communist movement. There were nothing but pluses in my file, no question marks at all. And I had no relatives in the West. That was important as well. So they figured, we got to talk to this guy. And so they did. I think that is how this came about. And then people think, well, then immediately recruitment started. Not even close. They knew what they knew. They knew that I was smart, and they knew that I was ideologically sound, but they didn't know that I had what it takes to what they were looking for. And this is material for the kind of job that is arguably the most difficult one, excepting the ones that require violence, okay? But as far as doing just intellectual type espionage, the most difficult one is being undercover illegal and by yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that required a number of character traits that they had to find out whether I had them. Because, for instance, I was a very adventurous person as a child. You have to have a sense of adventure. They called it, they were looking for a well-controlled sense of adventure. How do I know this? There were a couple of interviews that ex-heads of the Directorate S gave where they, after the KGB had fallen apart, and so they talked about how they were recruiting for these jobs. They literally looked through a couple of thousand candidates to find one that might be worth taking another look. I was one of those. So they were looking for things like, and I don't remember them all, but sharp, mentally sharp, quick decision maker, having no problems with change, fluid situations, whatever, having the ability to improvise very quickly on the spot when you're in a difficult situation. No problem with being alone by yourself or minor problems. And when you put it all together, this is what they're checking for. Did I have it? 18 months it took them before they said to themselves, we got to recruit this guy. And I thought when I was recruited, that was the end of it, but it was not. We can get there. I want to give you a chance to just add another question along those lines here.
Yeah, no, we're going to get there as well, too. But I did want to ask, I guess, you were just hiding that from a macro point of view. What do you think made the ideal KGB agent?
Well, again, it depends upon the kind of a job. It had to be somebody who had a strong foundation in communist ideology. Because other than, most of those KGB agents that operated in the West were under diplomatic cover. So what kind of a risk did they take? Yeah, they took the risk of, having failed. And you don't really fail well in the KGB. So that probably if you are careless and FBI finds you and you get kicked out of the country, you don't come home to a medal, okay? Your career is you're gonna wind up maybe in an office someplace unless you have some connections. So what required of them was ideology and smarts and the ability to judge people, work with people, and also be trainable. They had to have, they had to be good in tradecraft. All of us got very similar, if not identical, tradecraft training. I didn't get, and none of us, I don't know, I want to call them the intellectual spies, people that didn't engage in assassinations or like sabotage. None of us had weapons training. What for? You're going to shoot it out with the FBI? But for people like me, again, I told you what distinguished me from them, and it was worlds apart because of the danger I was involved in. For instance, for me to actually sign up knowing that there's a good chance I might wind up in jail, and knowing that I would be steadfast enough to stay in jail and wait for them to get me out. So all of this had to be taken into consideration. Ironically, we talked on the side before this interview that trust was not was not well extended to agents, no matter who they were. Like the KGB was ruled by mistrust. It wasn't just me saying it. There's people who operated inside the KGB and had more knowledge of that. Ironically, at one point, they had to trust me. They had to trust me. They couldn't check on me, so they had to trust everything that I told them to be the truth, because otherwise I couldn't function as an illegal, because I was way too vulnerable for those diplomats/agents checking on me, because they were under suspicion and possibly being investigated and followed. And if they lead the FBI to me, then I'm busted. That's the last thing the KGB wanted, to have somebody like me in jail. Not because they cared about me, but it became a huge headache because they had to get me out. Now you got to ask the question, why? You already know the question. You know the answer. Mm-hmm. I know you know the answer. If they don't get me out, they don't get another one to sign up for that job. Mm-hmm. And they had a track record of getting people out, and I knew that. I met 2 agents that spent 10 years in a jail in UK that they got out. Very famous Morris and Lana Cohen, American citizens who were initially the members of the Rosenberg spy ring. They managed to get out before the Rosenbergs were arrested, because otherwise they probably could have faced the death penalty too. And they were redeployed in the UK and arrested, and they got out. So, and I knew I would get out. So, but getting back, they actually had to trust me, and that trust backfired.
Yeah, well,
not to, no spoiler alert here.